Few places in Iceland have supported more flourishing communities than the island of Heimaey, the richest fishery centre in the country. Heimaey has been inhabited for 11 centuries, and the islanders have lived by egg gathering, some sheep farming, and above all, fishing. Since the beginning of the century, the fishing industry of the Vestmanna Islands has greatly increased. The harbour of Heimaey was the safest one near the best fishing banks of Iceland. In 1972, the 5,300 people living there earned a 1/12 of the total national export income. The convulsions of nature began in the area on the 14th of November 1963, when early in the morning the crew of a motor vessel saw a column of ash shoot up from the ocean. This eruption was only 18 kilometers from Heimaey, from where it could be clearly seen. The eruption piled up the island that was named Surtsey. Activity in and around Surtsey went on 3.5 years, ending in the spring of 1967. 6.5 years later, few expected the eruption that began to the southeast of a long extinct volcano, Helgafell, on Heimaey itself. This eruption began at about 10 minutes to 2 on the morning of the 23rd of January 1973, and very soon it had opened a crack 1.5 kilometers long. From this crack rose many scores of glowing lava fountains, while a river of molten lava poured down the slope to the southeast and over the cliffs into the sea. Only 200 or 300 meters away from this 50 to 100 meter high wall of fire, though, on the other side, were the nearest houses of the town. Luckily, on that fateful night, nearly the whole of the island fishing fleet happened to be in harbour. There was no panic in the town, though many were not unnaturally more than a little anxious. And soon after the alarm had been given, people began to stream down to the harbour with bags and parcels of the few belongings they had managed to snatch up in haste. While this was going on, red-hot sparks and fragments continued to shoot up without pause from the lava pools in the volcanic crack as the magma rose and sank with a varying pressure of gas below. Crater walls at once began to pile up, but on the north side, a river of lava flowed to the sea. In just over 4 hours, nearly 5,000 people were evacuated from the island, most of them by sea, but several hundreds by air. Only 200 or 300 stayed behind for essential work. By daybreak, on the first day of the eruption, the volcanic crack or fissure extended 100 meters out to sea. At first light, scientists were busy about the craters. Northwards along the shore, steam rose from the sea from a surface layer heated by contact with the hot edge of the lava. The lava was a rather viscous basalt, and its edge was of the block lava type. From the beginning of the eruption, it was obviously only a matter of time before either molten lava or lava bombs set fire to houses nearest the craters. The first houses were burnt down in the later part of the second day. And behind the town, the lava continued to advance, slowly but irresistibly, at a rate of about 100 cubic meters per second of volume output. The largest number of houses burnt down in the bombardments of the 26th and 27th of January. In the early days of the eruption, the black column of ash sometimes reached a height of 9 kilometers. Lighter clouds of steam rose where the lava flowed out to sea. Activity in the southernmost part of the crack on land ceased on the first day. During the following days, the active section shortened to a few hundred meters, and a mountain began to form. In the late evening of the third day, the wind shifted to the southeast, and the ash column was driven over the town. When the bombardment was at its heaviest, the layer of tephra increased in depth by half a meter to a meter an hour. By the end of the fifth day, about 1.5 million cubic meters of scoria had fallen on the town. If the wind had been southeast during the early weeks of the eruption, to the extent normal on the island, the greater part of the town would have been buried. From the mainland, volunteer workers poured in to clear the roofs and save them from collapsing, and for various other kinds of salvage work. Carpenters came by the score to nail sheets of corrugated iron over thousands of windows facing the craters, so that hot fragments shouldn't penetrate and set fire to the houses. By the evening of the 27th of January, most of the tephra fall was over, though there was some further addition to the layer in the town. During the earlier weeks of the eruption, special efforts were made to save the contents of houses and transfer furniture and other movables to the mainland. Large aircraft from Reykjavik and from the NATO base were used, while a great deal was also moved by sea. Many cars owned by the islanders reached the mainland, for the most part undamaged. Between the 4th and the 9th of February, the lava started moving northwards along the shore in sharp spasms, only stopping about 200 meters short of Heimaey and the complete closure of the harbour. It was obvious that if the harbour was closed, there would be little future for the town. An attempt was therefore made to check the advance of the lava by pumping seawater onto it to cool it. The pioneer of lava cooling was the Icelandic physicist Thorbjörn Sigurgeirsson, with later contributions from the geologist Thorleifur Einarsson and others. The effectiveness of the lava cooling was based on the fact that a cubic meter of water will cool 7/10 of a cubic meter of molten lava from a temperature of 1100 degrees centigrade to 100 degrees, if the water turns to steam. To begin with, the cooling was on a rather small scale. But with the arrival of the pumping vessel Sunday at the beginning of March, and the later acquisition of high-performance equipment from the United States, the output was raised to nearly 1,000 liters of water a second, directed ever further into the lava so as to produce the maximum effect. The final length of plastic piping used in the pumping system was 16 kilometers, and a total of 6 million cubic meters of water was pumped onto the lava. In places where large-scale pumping took place, the surface of the lava became extremely rough and rugged. From the second half of February, there was an alarming emission of gases, chiefly carbon dioxide, but also carbon monoxide and other kinds, which became evident in the town and lay in a bluish haze over it in still weather. Sleeping in the lower areas of the town had to be forbidden. There was mortal danger there for every living creature. Gradually, the fall of tephra became less concentrated, and winter was able to show in white on black that it still amounted to something. When the town was cloaked in snow, the heaps of tephra piled against the houses looked like snowdrifts. On the 20th of February, when the new volcano was almost as high as Helgabek, two large sections of it collapsed into the crater and were carried out through the opening. The larger one northwards over the thick lava, moving several meters a day. It rose to a height of about 45 meters above the surrounding lava, in shape like a pyramid, and was named the Wanderer. Many found occasion to climb to the top. In a single month, the lava carried this monster of millions of tons all the way out to the harbour approaches. From early in the eruption, defensive barriers had been heaped up here and there to try and prevent the lava from flowing into the town. As the lava became thicker, the pressure behind these walls of tephra increased, until some gave way and were pushed before it. On the 18th of March and the days following, dozens of houses were destroyed in this way. Sunday the 22nd of March, a church service was held in Landerkirche. There was some foreboding in the minds of many, owing to the recent advance of the lava, and the service was well attended. Late that Sunday evening, though, and during the night, the most severe assault of the lava began, as a 300-meter wide salient thrust north of the older lava in the easternmost part of the town. Early the following day, there was a pause in the assault, and snow fell on Heimaey. The damage could then be assessed. 70 houses had been overwhelmed by the lava during the night. That day, the President of Iceland visited the island, together with Magnus Magnusson, the mayor, and others. After a 2-day pause, the advance of the lava continued. When this assault came to an end on the 4th of April, a large section of the town and about 200 houses had been covered by lava. For a time, it seemed inevitable that the lava would pour into the harbour, but it stopped right at the harbour wall. From time to time, the craters continued to belch forth tephra and add to the new mountain. After the 4th of April, the flow of lava was virtually only to the southeast and south, away from the town. The massive cooling operation on its northern flank probably played some part in this development. The rate of flow was now about 10 cubic meters per second and was decreasing. Near the volcano, lava flowed mostly in closed channels that opened out at varying distances from it. Towards the end of April, the flow had clearly become more fluid than before, and the temperature was now about 1080 degrees centigrade. Most of this lava ran into the sea in many rivulets cloaked in steam. It was fascinating to fly or sail along the new lava edge and see how it gradually extended. Jets of steam by the lava edge showed clearly where the flow was at any time and where it was greatest. Sometimes explosions could be seen in the lava edge, like pseudo-craters. When the eruption ended on the 26th of June, the area of new lava amounted to 3.2 square kilometers, 2.2 of this being an addition to the area of the island. The volume of lava and the new volcano combined was about 230 million cubic meters, and the height of the volcano 215 meters. In many places, the temperature of the hardened lava was high, and large patches of it were brightly colored with a precipitation of sulfur and chlorine compounds. At At several points in the new lava, there was drilling to investigate the effects of the water cooling. Water pumped onto the lava was found to have cooled it to a depth of 10 meters. As the summer advanced, it was astonishing to see how vigorously the vegetation forced its way up through the layer of tephra on Heimaey, even where this was up to 15 centimeters thick. Later in the summer, there was some trouble in the most southerly area of the town with hot steam pouring up through houses and making them uninhabitable. Trenches were dug to release the steam so that it would not seep under the houses. Even before the end of the tephra eruption was in sight, those in charge on the island optimistically started work on clearing the scoria from the town. All through the summer, heavy machinery was constantly at work, the intention being to clear away 1.5 million cubic meters before the winter set in, where altogether about 2.5 million cubic meters fell on the town. Machinery couldn't be used in the town graveyard for fear of damage to the gravestones, so the work here had to be done by hand. But there was no lack of volunteers for this work. Here, keeping faith with the past was united with faith in the future. By the late summer of 1973, many streets of the town had been cleared. A few months earlier, few would have dared to hope that before the coming summer was out, they would once again see green grass, garden flowers, and children playing on Heimaey. Thanks to the new lava, the harbour approaches were now safer than before the eruption, and the good harbour in action again. In the shelter of the new volcano, life bloomed afresh in the town which, in a literal sense, had risen from the ashes.